The spaceship moved quietly through the dark sky toward the big station that floated above planet Kepler 442b. Maya Johnson sat in her seat with her hands resting on her lap. Her dark brown eyes looked out the window at the blue and green planet below. She was only 17 years old, but she was going to a very special school. This school was called the Galactic Federation Academy, and it was for the smartest and bravest students from many different planets and alien races. Maya was the youngest human ever chosen to go there. Her mother had cried when Maya left Earth. Her father just nodded his head in that quiet, strong way he always did. They both knew this was important. Humans had only met aliens 12 years ago when the Xanthari explorers came to Earth. That first meeting changed everything for humans. Now humans were part of the big galactic family called the Federation. In those 12 years, humans had shown they were good at building things and solving science problems. They were good at talking and making peace between different groups. But there was one thing that humans had not been tested in yet. That thing was fighting with their bodies and hands. Most alien species in the Federation had stopped learning how to fight a long time ago. They thought it was something only primitive and backward people did. The tall silver-skinned Xanthari used energy shields and laser guns. The crystal aliens called Volnari had bodies that broke too easily to ever fight. The huge Corventi aliens were so big and strong that nobody wanted to fight them anyway. For almost all the aliens, close combat fighting was something from the ancient past. They thought it was savage and unnecessary in modern times. But humans were different. Humans never stopped learning how to fight. From ancient times when people wrestled and boxed to modern days with mixed martial arts, humans kept training and improving. Maya carried all that history and knowledge in her body. She had been training in Muay Thai since she was 6 years old. Muay Thai was an ancient fighting style from Thailand that used fists and elbows and knees and kicks. When Maya was 15, she became the youngest world champion ever in Muay Thai. Then she defended her title 3 more times before she turned 17. She had never lost a single match. Now she was going to be the first person to bring human fighting knowledge to the stars. The ship made a soft bumping sound as it connected to the station. Maya picked up her one small bag and walked through the metal door that connected the ship to the station. The gravity felt lighter than on Earth, and she had to adjust how she walked. But years of balance training made it easy for her to adapt. Her body knew how to move in any situation. The academy building was huge and beautiful. The walls curved in ways that seemed impossible. The ceiling was so high she could barely see it. Students from different alien species walked through the halls. She saw the Xanthari with their tall, thin bodies and silver skin and strange eyes that had many parts like an insect. A group of Keltor students were doing some kind of movement exercise. The Keltor had 4 arms instead of 2, which made them look very different from humans. Far away, she saw a Volnari whose crystal body caught the light and made rainbows on the walls. None of the aliens looked at Maya as she walked past them. To them, she was just another new student. They did not know anything special about her. She was just a human girl from a planet that had only recently joined the Federation. That was going to change soon, but Maya did not think about that. She just kept walking to find her room. Her room was small but nice. It had a bed and a desk and a window that showed the space outside. She unpacked her clothes and put them away neatly. She placed her hand wraps and training shorts in a special box at the foot of her bed. On the desk, she put one photograph. It showed her whole family back on Earth. They were all smiling. The picture was taken right after her last championship fight. The academy was set up like schools on Earth. Students went to classes about alien, biology and space politics and engineering, and many other subjects. Maya signed up for the security and defense program. This was a small department because most aliens thought fighting and security were not important anymore. They kept the classes only because the Federation rules said they had to. Most species saw it as just old tradition that did not matter. Maya spent her first week going to orientation meetings and starting her classes. She met her teachers. They were all polite to her, but she could tell they were not sure about having a human student. She met other students too. Most of them were nice, but they kept their distance. Maya understood why. The Federation was civilized and peaceful, but that did not mean everyone trusted everyone else. Humans were new to the galaxy. Humans were strange. Humans came from a planet where wars still happened sometimes. Their planet still had crime and violence. The aliens thought humans were primitive people who were just pretending to be civilized. Maya heard the whispers when she walked past groups of students. She heard what they said about humans and about her. But she did not say anything back. She had dealt with doubt before. Every fighter she ever faced in the ring had looked at her the same way. They all thought they would beat her easily. They were all wrong. On her 8th day at the academy, something happened that would change everything. Maya was walking across the big open courtyard in the middle of the academy. She was going from one class to another. That was when she saw Kyle Brennan for the first time. He was another human, but he was 3 years older than Maya and much bigger. He looked like a football player with huge muscles and a thick neck. He had been at the academy for 2 years already. In that time, he had made a reputation for himself. But it was not a good reputation. Where Maya wanted to show that humans were disciplined and controlled, Kyle seemed to want to prove that humans were tough and mean. Kyle stood with a group of other students. Most of them were Corventhi aliens who were as big as Kyle. As Maya walked past them, Kyle said something loud. The words were in the Federation language and they were rude and dismissive. His friends laughed. Maya kept walking. She did not look at them. She just kept moving toward her next class. She took 5 more steps. Then Kyle shouted something else. This time he used a racial slur. It was a bad word about her skin color. Several students nearby stopped walking and turned to look. Maya felt her jaw get tight. Her muscles tensed. But she kept walking forward. Her mother had always told her to choose her battles carefully. This was not a battle worth fighting. She would just ignore him and walk away. But Kyle was not done. She heard heavy footsteps behind her. Then a big hand grabbed her shoulder and spun her around roughly. Maya turned and found herself face to face with Kyle. He was much taller than her and much heavier. He had a mean smile on his face. Behind him, his Corventhi friends watched with interest. More students were gathering now. A crowd was forming in a circle around them. Everyone wanted to see what would happen. Maya did not say anything at first. She just looked at Kyle with calm, steady eyes. Her bag hung from one shoulder. Her body looked relaxed, but her feet were in the right position. Her weight was balanced. Years of training had taught her how to read opponents. Kyle was easy to read. He was all anger and no control. He was all strength and no technique. He had probably won fights before just by being bigger and stronger than other people, but he had never fought anyone who really knew what they were doing. The choice had been made. The battle had found her whether she wanted it or not. Kyle stood in front of Maya, blocking her path. He was a full head taller than her. The station's light gravity made him look even bigger because he could stand up straighter. His face showed an ugly smirk. His eyes had the look of someone who had never really been challenged before. Behind him stood his Corventhi friends. They were watching with curious interest. The crowd around them was growing bigger. Students from different species stopped what they were doing to come watch. Everyone could feel that something was about to happen. Maya stayed quiet. She just looked at Kyle with her dark, calm eyes. Her bag still hung from one shoulder. Her stance looked relaxed, but anyone who knew fighting would see the truth. Her feet were positioned correctly. Her weight was distributed evenly. Her center of gravity was low and stable. Years of training had taught her to read opponents like books. Kyle was an easy book to read. He was full of aggression but had no control. He was strong but had no real technique. He was dangerous like a wild animal is dangerous, but he was not skilled. Kyle spoke again and his voice was loud enough for everyone to hear. "You deaf girl, I am talking to you." More students stopped to watch now. This was entertainment. This was something different from their boring classes. You think you can just ignore me. You think you can just walk away. His friends behind him laughed and made encouraging noises. The crowd grew even larger. Maya finally spoke and her voice was quiet but clear. "I was trying to. You should let me." Her words were simple and direct. There was no fear in her voice. No anger either. Just a calm statement of fact. This seemed to make Kyle even more angry. His face turned red. His hands clenched into fists. Kyle took a step closer. His voice got louder, trying to. "What do you think you are better than me? You think because they are making a big deal about you being here that you are special." The veins in his neck were standing out now. His whole body was tense with anger. Maya could see he was losing control. That made him predictable. That made him easy to handle. Maya kept her voice calm and steady. "I think I have class in 10 minutes. Please move." She did not raise her voice. She did not make threats. She just asked him politely to get out of her way. This was not what Kyle expected. He wanted her to be scared or angry. He wanted an excuse to do what he came to do. Kyle spread his arms wide in a challenging gesture. "Make me." Those two words hung in the air like smoke. The crowd was maybe 30 or 40 students now. They formed a loose circle around Maya and Kyle. Maya recognized some faces from her classes. She saw a Zenthari instructor standing at the edge of the crowd. The instructor was watching but not doing anything to stop what was happening. Maya knew why. The Federation Academy had rules about not interfering with student disputes unless someone actually got hurt. Words and posturing were allowed. Only real violence would make teachers step in. Maya slowly lowered her bag to the ground. The movement was careful and controlled. She straightened up and rolled her shoulders once. It was a small movement, but many things happened in her body at the same time. Her weight settled lower into her hips. Her center of gravity dropped. Her breathing became deeper and slower. Her muscles activated in a pattern that had been trained 10,000 times. It was like flipping a switch. Her body went from normal mode to fight mode in 1 second. Kyle saw none of this. He had no training to recognize the signs. He just saw a small girl who was barely 5 feet 6 inches tall. He saw someone who weighed maybe 130 pounds. He saw an easy target. He saw a way to show everyone how tough he was. He saw a way to put this new student in her place and make himself look strong. Kyle lifted his right knee. The movement was obvious and clumsy. Anyone with fight training could see it coming from a mile away. He was trying to knee Maya in the stomach. He wanted to hurt her, but not badly enough to get in serious trouble with the academy. Just enough to humiliate her. Just enough to make her back down. Just enough to show everyone that he was the alpha human at this school. Maya moved and everything changed. What happened next would be talked about for months. Several students had their devices recording. The footage would be watched over and over again by everyone from academy officials to Federation military commanders. People would slow it down and watch it frame by frame, trying to understand exactly what happened. Kyle's knee came up toward Maya's body. But Maya's left hand moved faster. Much faster. Her fingers wrapped around his shin. She was not gripping hard. She was just controlling the leg. At the same time, her right hand shot forward. Her palm hit Kyle's shoulder. The strike was not hard enough to injure him, but it had enough force and the right angle to break his balance. Kyle suddenly found himself standing on one leg with the other leg captured. He was leaning forward because of Maya's push on his shoulder. He tried to pull his leg back, but Maya moved with him. She stepped to the side, keeping control of his leg. Then her foot swept his other leg, the one he was standing on. Kyle's support was gone. Physics did the rest. Gravity pulled him down. Kyle crashed face first into the ground. The sound of his body hitting the floor echoed across the courtyard. The crowd went completely silent. Everyone was shocked. 3 seconds had passed since Kyle tried to knee Maya. Just 3 seconds and he was on the ground. Kyle was more embarrassed than hurt. His pride was damaged more than his body. He pushed himself up with a snarl. His face was red now from anger and shame. He was stronger and bigger, and he was not going to let this little girl beat him. He came at Maya again. This time he threw a big wild punch. He put all his weight behind it. If that punch connected, it would hurt Maya badly. The punch never connected. Maya moved her head just slightly. The fist passed over her shoulder, missing her by inches. At the same time, she stepped inside Kyle's reach. Her right elbow came up in a short, tight arc. It stopped 1 centimeter from Kyle's jaw. She could have hit him. She could have knocked him out. But she chose not to. The control was perfect. The message was clear. I could hurt you, but I choose not to. Instead of striking, Maya pivoted on her feet. She caught Kyle's extended arm. She used his forward momentum against him. His own movement threw him. He went down again. This time he hit harder. The air rushed out of his lungs with a whooshing sound. 6 seconds total had passed. Kyle was stubborn. Maybe he was also stupid. He got up a third time. He was breathing hard now. His face was flushed red. Sweat was forming on his forehead even in the cool station air. His Corventi friends had stopped smiling. The crowd was silent. Everyone watched with wide eyes and open mouths. They could not believe what they were seeing. Kyle charged forward, trying to use his size and strength to overwhelm Maya. It was exactly the wrong thing to do. Maya had fought opponents who were 50 pounds heavier than her. She knew how to deal with size and power. She did not run away. Instead, she stepped forward into his charge. She ducked under his reaching arms. Her shin cracked against his lead leg. The kick hit a nerve cluster just above his knee. It was not hard enough to cause permanent damage, but it was hard enough to make his leg buckle. Kyle dropped to one knee. Maya's hands were already controlling his head. She pulled his head down as her knee came up. The knee stopped a hair's width from his face. Once again, she showed perfect control. She could have knocked him unconscious, but she chose not to. 8 seconds total had passed since the fight started. Maya released Kyle and stepped back. Kyle stayed on his knees. His chest was heaving as he tried to catch his breath. He finally understood that he was completely outmatched. This girl was on a different level. She was not just better than him. She was so much better that it was not even close. Maya picked up her bag from the ground. She looked at the Zenthari instructor who had been watching the whole thing. Maya spoke calmly as if nothing unusual had happened. "I have class. Am I excused?" The instructor, whose name was Vexton, just nodded slowly. His multifaceted eyes were wide with surprise. Maya walked through the crowd. The students moved aside to let her pass. Nobody said a word. Maya walked away without looking back. Behind her, the courtyard suddenly erupted with noise. Everyone started talking at once. The videos were already being shared on the Academy network. Within minutes, everyone at the school would see what happened. Within hours, the video would reach Earth. Within days, it would be seen across the entire Federation. Everything was about to change. The video spread through the Academy network like wildfire. Within 1 hour, every student had seen it. Within 3 hours, it had reached Earth. Within 1 day, it was being discussed in Federation military channels and government offices. Within 3 days, scholars and analysts had written a dozen studies about what they saw. The video was only 8 seconds long, but those 8 seconds changed everything. The analysis of the fight was fascinating to watch. Federation species had very advanced understanding of physics and leverage and how bodies move. But they had never applied that knowledge to unarmed fighting. Not like this. Not with such brutal efficiency. Experts watched Maya's movements frame by frame. They measured the angles of her strikes. They calculated how little energy she used. They studied how she used Kyle's own strength and momentum against him. It was like watching a science demonstration, but it was also something more. It was art, it was beauty. It was perfect technique. What surprised Federation observers most was not the fighting itself. It was the control. Maya had dominated Kyle completely, but she never seriously hurt him. Every strike had been measured and precise. Every throw had been executed with care. She had shown not just the ability to cause violence, but the discipline to control it. She had shown that she could hurt someone badly, but chose not to. That level of control was something new. That was something the Federation had never seen before. This was different. This was potentially revolutionary. This could change how the Federation thought about physical conflict and self-defense. Maya became famous overnight. Everyone wanted to talk to her or interview her or study her. But she handled all the attention with the same calm composure she had shown in the courtyard. She went to her classes. She trained alone in her room. She politely said no to most interview requests. When she did agree to talk to reporters, she was careful to give credit to her teachers back on Earth. She talked about her family. She explained the long history and tradition of Muay Thai. Kyle disappeared for a day after the fight. He stayed in his room nursing his bruised ego and sore muscles. But then he did something that surprised everyone. He found Maya in the dining hall where students ate their meals. The conversation was short and awkward. Kyle stood in front of Maya's table looking uncomfortable. His face was still a little red with embarrassment. He spoke quietly so other students could not hear. "I am sorry. I was wrong. I should not have done that. I should not have said those things." Maya looked up at him and nodded once. Her face showed no anger, no smugness, no need to rub his face in his defeat. She just accepted his apology with a simple nod. Kyle turned to leave, but then he stopped. He turned back to Maya. His voice was uncertain, like he was afraid she would say no. "Could you teach me what you did? Could you teach me how to do that?" Maya studied him for a long moment. She was trying to see if he was serious or if this was some kind of trick. But Kyle's eyes were honest. He genuinely wanted to learn. Maya's voice was thoughtful when she answered, "Maybe. If you can learn to control your temper first. That is the first lesson. Control yourself before you try to control a fight." Kyle nodded slowly. He understood. He walked away, but something had changed between them. 2 weeks after the incident, Maya was called to the office of Director Chenval. He was the highest authority at the academy. The director was a Zenthari elder. His silver skin was weathered and darker than younger Zenthari. His multifaceted eyes reflected the wisdom of someone who had lived for centuries. His office was large and filled with artifacts from different worlds and different eras of Federation history. Chenval's voice had the crystalline quality that all Zenthari voices had. It was like listening to wind chimes or bells. "Cadet Johnson, you have created quite a stir." He gestured to a chair and Maya sat down. She kept her back straight and her hands folded in her lap. She was respectful but not afraid. Maya spoke honestly. "That was not my intention, sir. I just wanted to go to class." "I did not want any trouble." Chenval made a gesture that might have been the Zenthari equivalent of a smile. "I believe you. Nevertheless, intentions matter less than consequences, and the consequences of your actions have been significant." He touched a control on his desk and a holographic display appeared in the air between them. It showed documents and reports and videos. "The Federation Defense Council has reviewed the footage of your encounter. They have questions. Many questions." Chenval's eyes seemed to focus more intently on Maya. She felt like he was looking into her soul. She kept her composure and waited for him to continue. Maya asked carefully, "What kind of questions, sir?" Chenval touched another control and more information appeared in the hologram. "Whether what you demonstrated is common among humans. Whether it can be taught to other species. Whether it represents a genuine martial discipline or simply natural human aggression that has been channeled effectively. These are important questions, Cadet Johnson. The answers could affect how the Federation views humanity's role in our civilization." Maya took a moment to think about her answer. She knew this was important. She knew she was not just speaking for herself, but for all of humanity. Muay Thai is one of many martial arts that humans have developed over thousands of years. Some are older and some are newer. All of them represent centuries or even millennia of refinement and improvement. The techniques work because they are based on human anatomy and physics, but I think the principles might translate to other species. The physics are universal. Balance is balance. Leverage is leverage. Those things work the same way regardless of what species you are. Chenval nodded slowly. The Council wishes to explore this possibility. They are proposing a pilot program. You would teach willing students from various species the fundamentals of human martial arts. The techniques would be adapted as necessary to accommodate different physiologies and body structures. You would work with our experts to develop a curriculum. Maya felt a flutter of nervousness in her stomach. She kept it from showing on her face, but inside she was uncertain. "I am 17 years old, sir. I am not qualified to develop an entire training program for multiple species. I am still a student myself. I still have so much to learn." Chenval made that almost smile gesture again. "Which is why you would not work alone. You would collaborate with our xenophysiology experts and combat theorists. We would bring in specialists from Earth as well. Your role would be to provide the human perspective and practical demonstrations. You would show us what is possible. Our scientists would figure out how to adapt it." The director's voice became more serious. "This is an opportunity, Cadet Johnson, not just for you personally, but for humanity's standing in the Federation. The Council has been impressed by more than just your fighting skill. They have noted your discipline, your control, your ability to de-escalate the situation rather than dominate your opponent. You could have hurt Cadet Brennan badly, but you chose not to. That shows wisdom beyond your years. That shows the kind of character the Federation values." Maya felt the weight of his words settle on her shoulders. This was so much bigger than a fight in a courtyard. This was about how billions of beings across thousands of worlds would think about humanity. This was about whether humans would be seen as violent primitives or as disciplined warriors. This was about the future of her entire species. In the galactic community, she thought about her parents back on Earth. She thought about Master Somchai, who had taught her first kicks when she was just a little girl. She thought about all the other teachers and training partners who had helped her become who she was. She thought about the responsibility she carried not just for herself but for all of them. Maya took a deep breath and let it out slowly. "When would the program start, sir?" Chenval's eyes seemed to brighten. "As soon as possible. We can begin with preliminary planning next week. You would continue your regular classes while working on the program development. Once we have a curriculum established, we would open it to volunteer students." Maya nodded. She felt scared and excited at the same time. Okay, I will do it. But I want to make one thing clear. This is not about teaching people to fight. This is about teaching discipline and control and respect. Fighting is just the tool we use to learn those lessons. Chenval nodded his agreement. That is exactly the right attitude, Cadet Johnson. That is why you are the right person for this task. Maya left the director's office feeling like her life had just changed in ways she could not fully understand yet. She walked back to her quarters slowly. Other students stared at her as she passed. Some looked at her with respect. Some with curiosity. Some with suspicion. Maya ignored them all. She had work to do. She had a responsibility to fulfill. She had a chance to show the galaxy what humanity was really capable of. The Federation Martial Arts Research Initiative started small. That was the official name they gave to Maya's program. She worked with a team of 5 specialists who were experts in different fields. There were 2 xenobiologists who understood how different alien bodies worked. There was 1 combat theorist who studied fighting strategies. There was 1 human biomechanics expert named Dr. Lisa Wong, who had been quickly brought from Earth to help. And there was 1 Federation historian named Krystal, who specialized in studying ancient warfare from before technology. They started with the most basic fundamentals. Maya would demonstrate simple stances and strikes and movements. The specialists would watch and record everything. They would analyze her movements from every angle. Dr. Wong would explain the human anatomy and how muscles worked. She would point out which muscles were contracting and which were relaxing. She would explain why certain movements were more efficient than others. The xenobiologist would then explore how those same movements might work for Xanthari, or Keltor or Corventhi bodies. Each species had different joints and different muscle structures. What worked for humans might need to be modified for aliens. The historian Krystal proved to be unexpectedly valuable. She was a Volnari, which meant her body was made of living crystal. She was ancient even by Volnari standards. She had studied martial traditions across hundreds of different worlds. Most of those traditions had been abandoned thousands of years ago, when those civilizations became more advanced. But Krystal remembered them. She recognized patterns in Maya's Muay, Thai techniques that were similar to combat forms from species that had gone extinct long before humans even existed. Krystal's voice chimed like bells when she spoke during one training session. There are universal principles at work here: leverage and balance and momentum. These are not cultural concepts. These are physics. They work the same way everywhere in the universe. Your species has simply maintained the practical application of these principles longer than most civilized species. You never forgot what we all learned and then abandoned. That makes you valuable teachers. After 6 weeks of preparation and planning, they opened the program to volunteer students. Maya had expected maybe a dozen students to sign up. She thought most aliens would be too proud or too skeptical to learn from a human teenager. She was wrong. 73 students signed up on the first day. By the end of the first week, there was a waiting list of over 200 students. The interest was overwhelming. The classes were completely different from anything Maya had experienced on Earth. Teaching a Xanthari to punch required completely rethinking hand positions because their fingers had different joints. Their hands bent in ways human hands could not. Keltor students with their 4 arms needed entirely new forms that took advantage of their extra limbs. A Keltor could block with 2 arms while striking with the other 2. That opened up possibilities that humans could never use. The massive Corventhi could not move quickly on their feet, but once they understood how to use their huge weight efficiently, they became devastating. A Corventhi who learned proper technique could generate incredible power. Maya discovered something about herself during these classes. She had a natural gift for teaching. Years of competition had given her deep understanding of techniques and principles. She knew not just how to do things but why they worked. Months at the academy had taught her patience and cultural sensitivity. She had learned to see past surface differences and find common ground. She could break down complex movements into simple steps. She could adapt techniques for species she had never even heard of 6 months ago. She could explain concepts in ways that made sense to completely alien minds. Kyle Brennan was one of her most dedicated students. True to his word, he had worked hard on controlling his temper. He attended every class. He practiced every day. He would never have Maya's natural talent or her years of training, but he proved to be dedicated and willing to learn from his mistakes. More importantly, he helped bridge gaps with other human students at the academy. Some of them had been skeptical about learning from someone 3 years younger than them. But Kyle's willingness to be humble and accept Maya as his teacher made it easier for others to do the same. 3 months into the program, Maya was leading a class of 30 students through basic combination techniques. She was demonstrating how to link a punch with a kick when Director Chen Val entered the training hall. He was not alone. He brought visitors with him. 2 of them were humans wearing Federation military uniforms. 3 others were Zenthari officers with medals and rank insignia on their uniforms. This was clearly an important group. Maya called her class to attention. All the students stopped what they were doing and stood straight. Maya bowed to show respect. Her students had learned to bow as well. It was a gesture that transcended species. A bow meant respect and acknowledgement. Chenval gestured for Maya to continue the class. So she resumed her instruction, while the visitors watched from the side of the training hall. The visitors watched the entire 2-hour session. They saw Maya correcting a Keltor student's stance with gentle hands and patient words. They saw her demonstrate a throwing technique on Kyle, who had learned how to fall properly without getting hurt. They saw students from 6 different species working together. They saw aliens helping each other understand techniques that were difficult for their particular body types. They saw something that looked less like a fighting class and more like a community of learners supporting each other. After the class ended, the students filed out, talking excitedly about what they had learned. The visitors approached Maya as she was putting away training equipment. One of the human officers stepped forward. She was a commander with gray streaks in her dark hair. Her uniform was crisp and professional. Her voice was businesslike but not unkind. "Impressive, Cadet Johnson. Very impressive. The Federation Defense Council has been monitoring your progress closely. We have been watching your classes and reading the reports from the research team." Maya wiped sweat from her forehead with a towel. "Thank you, Commander." She was not sure what else to say. She could tell this was leading somewhere important, but she did not know where. The commander's name was Patricia Hayes, according to the name badge on her uniform. Commander Hayes continued speaking. "We have a proposal for you. The Council wishes to expand your program significantly, not just here at the Academy, but across multiple Federation facilities. We are talking about training halls on 12 different worlds, hundreds of instructors, thousands of students. This would be a major initiative with substantial resources and support." Maya felt her stomach flutter with nervousness. "That is an enormous undertaking, Commander. I am not sure I am ready for something that big. I am still learning myself. I am still figuring out how to teach different species effectively. Scaling that up to 12 worlds seems overwhelming." Commander Hayes nodded with understanding. "Yes, it is enormous, which is why we need you to lead the curriculum development. You would not do it alone. You would work with a large team of experts from across the Federation. Your insights and experience would shape how we approach physical combat training for the next generation of defense personnel. Your practical knowledge would be the foundation. Other experts would build on that foundation." Maya shook her head slowly. "But Commander, I am still a student myself. I have 2 more years of academy training ahead of me. I cannot take on a project this big and still complete my education. It would be impossible to do both. The Council is prepared to accelerate your graduation." Commander Hayes' voice was firm. "Your practical contributions to the Federation have already exceeded typical academic requirements. You have demonstrated mastery in your field. You have shown leadership and teaching ability. You would receive full accreditation along with a commission as a Federation training specialist. This would be a formal position with rank and authority." One of the Zenthari officers stepped forward. His name badge identified him as Zixon. His uniform showed many medals indicating a long, distinguished career. "I must add my perspective, young human. I served in Federation security forces for 40 standard years. In all that time, I believed combat training was an archaic formality, something we did only because tradition demanded it. But watching your students today, I saw something I had not recognized before. You are not simply teaching them to fight. You are teaching them to understand their own capabilities and limitations. You are teaching them discipline and respect and self-control alongside the physical techniques. These are valuable lessons regardless of what species one belongs to." Maya looked at Director Chenval, who had been silent throughout this entire exchange. The old Zenthari gave her a slight nod of encouragement. His multifaceted eyes seemed to be telling her that this was the right path, that this was what she was meant to do. Maya thought about everything that had brought her to this moment. She thought about her parents who had supported her dreams. She thought about Master Somchai and all her other teachers who had given her the skills she now shared with aliens. She thought about every student who had walked into her training hall eager to learn something new. She thought about the responsibility but also the opportunity. The expansion of the martial arts program brought challenges Maya had not expected. Success at one academy was completely different from trying to make it work across 12 different worlds, with hundreds of different species. The problems came from directions she never anticipated. Not everyone was happy about the initiative. Some Federation officials thought it was a waste of money and resources. They saw it as primitive human obsessions being forced onto civilized alien species. Other officials worried it would make violence more common rather than less common. There were protests outside Federation government buildings. Major news networks ran debates with experts arguing both sides. Council chambers filled with heated arguments about whether the program should continue. Maya had to face these concerns directly. She gave interviews to journalists. She wrote articles explaining the philosophy behind martial arts. She even had to testify before a Federation subcommittee, which was intimidating for an 18-year-old. But her message stayed consistent no matter who she talked to. Martial arts training was not about making people more violent. It was about teaching them to understand their own physical abilities. It was about building discipline. It was about developing respect for others and for oneself. Students who understood their own power were less likely to misuse it. During one particularly difficult hearing, a council member challenged her directly. He was a pompous Zenthari who clearly thought humans were beneath him. How can you claim this promotes peace when you are literally teaching people how to hurt each other? That seems contradictory at best and dishonest at worst. His voice dripped with contempt. Maya kept her voice calm and respectful even though she wanted to snap back at him. We do not teach people how to fight. We teach them when not to fight. We teach them control. A student who has trained for years develops deep understanding of what their body can do. They know how much force is needed for different situations. They know how to defend themselves without causing unnecessary harm. Most importantly, they develop the confidence that comes from competence. Confident people do not need to prove themselves through violence. Insecure people do. Our training creates confidence, and that confidence prevents conflict. The council member tried to argue more, but Maya had made her point. Slowly and steadily, the critics were won over. Data from the pilot program supported everything Maya claimed. Students in martial arts training showed better physical health than students who did not train. They had higher self-confidence scores. They had fewer incidents of violent conflicts with other students. The discipline they learned in training halls carried over into their academic work and their social relationships. The evidence was overwhelming and impossible to deny. But Maya also faced personal challenges that were harder to overcome than political opposition. At 18 years old, she was managing a program with hundreds of employees and thousands of students. She worked with xenobiologists to adapt techniques for newly discovered species. She trained instructors who would carry her methods to distant worlds she might never visit. She balanced endless administrative duties with her own continued training and personal development. Some days she felt overwhelmed by the responsibility. Some nights she lay awake wondering if she was really qualified for this role. Dr. Lisa Wong became more than just a colleague during this difficult time. She became a true mentor and friend. Lisa was 20 years older than Maya and had decades of experience dealing with academic politics and bureaucratic nonsense. She taught Maya how to navigate the complicated world of Federation administration. She showed her how to build alliances and compromise without compromising her core principles. When Maya felt discouraged, Lisa was there with encouragement and practical advice. When Maya made mistakes, Lisa helped her learn from them without being harsh. Kyle Brennan also proved invaluable during the expansion. He had transformed completely from the angry bully Maya first met. Now he was one of her senior instructors and handled much of the daily training operations. His natural leadership abilities that had once been used to intimidate others were now channeled into helping students grow. He was patient with beginners. He was encouraging with students who struggled. He had learned that real strength came from lifting others up, not tearing them down. The change in Kyle was proof that people could grow and change when given the right guidance. 1 year after the courtyard incident that started everything, Maya received an unexpected message from Earth. The International Muay Thai Federation wanted to honor her contributions to the sport. They were creating a special new title just for her. They called it Ambassador of Martial Arts to the Stars. The ceremony would be held in Bangkok, which was the traditional home and birthplace of Muay Thai. They wanted Maya to come back to Earth for the presentation. Maya requested 2 weeks of leave and made the long journey home. It felt strange to be back on Earth after spending so much time in space. The gravity felt heavier. The air smelled different. Everything seemed smaller somehow and more crowded. But it was also comforting. This was home. This was where she came from. These were her roots. The ceremony was held in a traditional training hall in Bangkok. It was not a big fancy event with thousands of people. Instead, it was small and intimate and meaningful. Her former teachers were there. Her parents came. Representatives from various martial arts organizations attended. Master Somchai was there looking older and more frail than Maya remembered, but his eyes were still sharp and bright. They presented her with a ceremonial sash and a plaque. She accepted the honor with a short speech thanking everyone who had helped her get to where she was. After the ceremony, Master Somchai asked to speak with Maya privately. They walked out to a small garden behind the training hall. The old man moved slowly, using a cane, but he refused help. They sat on a wooden bench under a tree. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Master Somchai reached out and took Maya's hand in his gnarled, weathered hands. "I always knew you were special, Maya." His voice was soft and rough with age. "Even when you were 6 years old and barely tall enough to reach the heavy bag, I knew you had something different inside you. But I never imagined this. I never dreamed you would take our art to the stars. I never thought I would live to see Muay Thai taught to aliens on distant planets. You have done something incredible. You have shown the universe what it means to be both strong and controlled, both powerful and peaceful. You have honored not just Muay Thai but all martial arts and all of humanity." Maya felt tears forming in her eyes. She blinked them back but could not completely stop them. "I only showed them what you taught me, Master. Everything I am comes from you and the other teachers. This all started with you taking a chance on a little girl who wanted to learn how to kick." Master Somchai shook his head slowly. "No, child. I taught you techniques. I taught you forms and movements. But what makes you special is not what I taught you. It is who you are. Your character, your discipline, your respect for others. Those things came from inside you. I just helped you develop them." They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Maya felt at peace for the first time in months. The pressure and stress of running the program melted away temporarily. She was just Maya again, just a student sitting with her teacher, just a young woman grateful for the wisdom and guidance she had received. Maya spent 2 full weeks on Earth. She visited her family and spent time with her parents and siblings. She went to her old training halls and worked out with former training partners. She ate her mother's cooking and slept in her childhood bedroom. She walked through familiar streets and remembered who she used to be before all this started. The time on Earth reminded her of her roots and the traditions that shaped her. When she returned to space, she felt reinvigorated and refocused. She had recharged her batteries and reconnected with her foundation. Back at the academy, the program continued growing faster than ever. More training halls opened on new worlds each month. Other human martial artists started joining the Federation program. Experts in judo came from Japan. Brazilian jiu-jitsu specialists arrived from South America. Boxing coaches and wrestling instructors and experts in dozens of other fighting styles joined the initiative. What had started as Maya teaching Muay Thai had evolved into something much bigger. It became a comprehensive program drawing on humanity's entire rich heritage of martial arts. Each style brought unique perspectives and techniques. Each tradition contributed something valuable to the growing curriculum. But even as the program expanded and diversified, Maya remained its emotional and philosophical center. When students thought about human martial arts, they thought of the young woman who had defeated a bully in 8 seconds, and then turned that moment into a galaxy-wide movement. Her face was the face of the program. Her story was the story everyone told. Her philosophy of discipline over aggression and control, over chaos, became the foundation that everything else was built upon. Maya understood the responsibility that came with being the public face of such an important initiative. She carried it as best she could. She tried to always set a good example. She trained every single day, no matter how busy she was. She treated everyone with respect, from the newest student to the highest-ranking Federation officials. 3 years after the courtyard fight, Maya stood in a brand-new training facility on the Federation capital world called Zentara Prime. She was 20 years old now and had accomplished more than most beings managed in entire lifetimes. The Federation martial arts program now operated on 37 different worlds. More than 8,000 students were actively training. Martial arts had been officially integrated into Federation defense training and law enforcement programs. Even diplomatic security teams were learning basic self-defense techniques. What started as one girl teaching one class had become a fundamental part of Federation culture. But the program's impact reached far beyond just combat training. Federation psychologists had documented significant improvements in mental health among martial arts students. They showed better stress management skills. They had more effective tools for dealing with interpersonal conflicts. They demonstrated higher emotional intelligence. The physical training was important, but the mental and emotional benefits were equally valuable. Students learned patience through repetitive practice. They learned humility through losing and failing. They learned respect by bowing to training partners. These lessons shaped character in ways that went far beyond fighting ability. Something else remarkable had happened that Maya never anticipated. Several alien species had begun developing their own unique martial traditions inspired by humanity's example. The Volnari, with their crystalline bodies, created something they called resonance combat. It used sound waves and vibrations to defend without causing physical contact. A Volnari master could shatter incoming projectiles with precisely tuned harmonics. They could disorient attackers with dissonant frequencies. It was beautiful and strange and completely different from anything humans had created. The Keltor developed four-path fighting, which took full advantage of their forearms. They created forms and techniques that were impossible for two-armed species to replicate. A Keltor practitioner could attack and defend simultaneously from multiple angles. They developed grappling techniques that were devastatingly effective. Watching a skilled Keltor fighter was like watching a beautiful deadly dance with limbs moving in perfect coordination, even the peaceful. Zenthari surprised everyone by creating their own martial art. They called it Silver Wind. It emphasized flowing movements and redirecting force rather than meeting it head-on. Zenthari bodies were not built for power, but they excelled at speed and flexibility. Silver Wind used those natural advantages. A Zenthari master seemed to float like smoke. Attacks passed through empty space. Opponents found themselves off balance and confused without understanding how it happened. Maya encouraged all of these developments enthusiastically. Her mission had never been to force human methods on alien species. It was to help them discover their own potential. Each species had unique physical characteristics and cultural perspectives. They should develop martial arts that fit their bodies and reflected their values. The universal principles of balance and leverage and control applied everywhere, but the specific applications could and should vary. Maya felt proud when she saw aliens creating their own traditions. It meant they had truly understood the deeper lessons. The training facility on Zentara Prime was the newest and largest of all the Federation martial arts centers. It was designed to accommodate students from any species. The ceilings were high enough for the tallest Corventi. The floors had different surface materials for species with different traction needs. Temperature controls could adjust for species that needed heat or cold. There were specialized training areas for species that moved very differently from the standard bipedal form. The architects had consulted with a xenobiologist to create a truly universal training space. Today, the facility was filled with representatives from across the entire Federation. They gathered for a special ceremony that Maya had been told about only last week. The Federation Council was making an important announcement. Maya stood on the central platform wearing her traditional Muay Thai training gear. Beside her stood Master Somchai, who had made another journey from Earth. His health was declining, but he insisted on being present for this moment. Kyle Brennan stood nearby, looking sharp in his instructor uniform. Dr. Lisa Wong was there representing the human scientific community. Dozens of other instructors and program administrators filled the hall. Federation Chancellor Tivrex stepped to the speaking platform. He was an ancient Volnari whose crystal body had darkened with age. His voice rang out with perfect clarity, filling the entire enormous space. 3 years ago, a young human student was confronted in a courtyard by someone who wished to harm her. That moment could have ended in anger and violence and resentment. Instead, it became the seed from which something beautiful grew. Maya Johnson showed us that strength without wisdom is worthless, that power without control is dangerous, that the true warrior seeks peace and avoids conflict whenever possible. The Chancellor turned his crystalline eyes toward Maya. You have given the Federation an incredible gift, young human. Not just techniques for defending ourselves, but a philosophy for improving ourselves. You have reminded us that civilization is not about the absence of strength. It is about choosing to use strength wisely. You have shown us that learning to fight is not about becoming violent. It is about becoming disciplined and controlled and confident enough not to need violence. Maya bowed deeply. It was a gesture that everyone in the Federation now understood as a sign of respect and humility. I accept this honor on behalf of all martial artists, past and present. On behalf of humans and aliens alike, every species has the capacity for discipline and growth and self-mastery. I have simply helped some discover what they already possessed within themselves. The credit belongs to everyone who chose to learn, everyone who chose to grow, everyone who chose the difficult path of self-improvement. After the ceremony, Maya walked slowly through the training halls. She watched students from a dozen different species practicing their forms. In one corner, a young Zenthari girl who could not be more than 8 years old was learning basic stances from a massive Corventhi instructor. The size difference was almost comical, but the Corventhi was incredibly gentle and patient. In another area, a group of Keltor students were sparring. Their 8 arms moved in coordinated patterns that looked like flowing water. Far across the hall, a human teenager was teaching meditation techniques to a mixed class of different species. Master Samchai shuffled up beside Maya, leaning heavily on his cane. "What are you thinking about, child?" He spoke in Thai, which felt comfortable and familiar. Maya smiled and answered in the same language. "I am thinking about that day in the courtyard. About how frightened I was even though I did not show it. About how I just wanted to get to my class and avoid trouble. I never wanted any of this. It just happened." Master Samchai made a sound that might have been a chuckle. "And now look what came from that moment. Look at what you have built. Look at all these students learning and growing." Maya nodded, but her face showed uncertainty. "Sometimes I worry, Master. What if I had handled things differently that day? What if I had just walked away and ignored Kyle? What if I had hurt him badly in the fight? So many things could have gone wrong. I was just lucky." The old master placed a weathered hand on Maya's shoulder. His grip was still surprisingly strong despite his age. "You are still so young, even with everything you have accomplished. Let me tell you what I see. I see that you made exactly the right choice because you had trained your entire life to make the right choice. Yes, the techniques were important, but more important was your character, your discipline, your respect for Kyle even while you were defeating him. That is what made the difference. That is what created all of this, not luck, not chance. You." Maya felt tears prickling at the corners of her eyes. She blinked them away. "I hope I can continue to live up to that standard. I hope I do not disappoint everyone who believes in me." The weight of responsibility felt heavy on her shoulders. So many people depended on her now. So many students looked to her as an example. The pressure was constant and sometimes overwhelming. Master Samchai shook his head gently. "You will not disappoint anyone. Do you know why? Because you understand something that took me many decades to learn. Martial arts are not really about fighting. They are about becoming the kind of person who rarely needs to fight. They are about developing the strength to protect others and the wisdom to know when protection is necessary. You have that wisdom, Maya. You have always had it. That is why you were chosen for this role. That is why you will succeed." They stood together in comfortable silence watching the students train. Across the hall, Kyle was demonstrating a throwing technique to a group of eager beginners. He moved with confidence and precision. He had come so far from the angry, aggressive young man who attacked Maya in the courtyard. His transformation was proof that people could change. That growth was possible for everyone regardless of where they started. Later that evening, Maya sat alone in her private quarters at the facility. She was composing a message to send back to Earth. It would be broadcast to martial arts schools and training halls and dojos across the entire planet. 4 years after the courtyard incident, Maya received news that would test everything she had built. There was a crisis developing on the Outer Rim territories. A dispute between 2 species had escalated beyond normal diplomatic solutions. The Theron and the Vask had competing claims to a resource-rich star system. Tensions had been building for months. Now there were reports of small-scale conflicts breaking out. Ships had been destroyed. Stations had been attacked. People were dying. The Federation was trying to prevent full-scale war, but negotiations were failing. The Federation Defense Council made an unusual request. They wanted Maya to visit the disputed region as a neutral mediator. The reasoning was that both species had students in the martial arts program. Both had embraced the philosophy of discipline and control that Maya taught. The council hoped that Maya's presence might help de-escalate the situation. It was a strange request. Maya was not a diplomat or a military commander. She was a martial arts instructor. But the council insisted that her unique perspective might make a difference. Maya accepted despite her reservations. She traveled to the border region with a small delegation including Kyle and Dr. Wong. The journey took 2 weeks through increasingly dangerous space. They heard reports of skirmishes and raids. The situation was deteriorating rapidly. When they finally arrived at the neutral station where negotiations were being held, the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. The Theron were a proud warrior race. They had scales like reptiles and stood nearly 7 feet tall. They valued honor above almost everything else. The Vask were smaller but equally fierce. They had fur and claws and moved with predatory grace. Both species had long military traditions. Both were convinced they were in the right. Both were preparing for war if diplomacy failed. Maya spent her first day meeting with representatives from both sides separately. She listened to their grievances and their justifications. She heard the history of the conflict from different perspectives. She recognized something familiar in how both sides talked. They spoke of honor and strength and not backing down. They used the language of warriors who had forgotten the deeper lessons of combat. They had forgotten that the strongest warrior is the one who avoids unnecessary fights. On the second day, Maya did something unexpected. She requested that both delegations meet her in the station's largest cargo bay. She had the space cleared and set up as a training area. When the delegations arrived looking confused, Maya was standing in the center wearing her training clothes. Kyle and several other instructors stood with her. Maya spoke to the assembled representatives. Her voice was calm but carried authority. You all have students in the Federation Martial Arts program. Your people have learned our techniques. But I wonder if they have learned our philosophy. I wonder if you understand what martial arts really teach. Today I am going to show you. Not with words, but with actions. She gestured to Kyle, who stepped forward. Kyle was much larger than Maya now. 4 years of serious training had built muscle on his already substantial frame. He looked like he could break Maya in half. The delegations watched with interest, wondering what was about to happen. Maya and Kyle bowed to each other. Then they began to spar. But this was not the kind of sparring most warriors understood. This was controlled demonstration of technique and principle. Kyle attacked with power and speed. Maya defended with precision and minimal movement. She showed how a smaller, weaker opponent could overcome a larger, stronger one through superior technique and positioning. She demonstrated how force could be redirected rather than met head-on. She illustrated how control and discipline were more important than raw aggression. The sparring went on for 10 minutes. Kyle never managed to land a clean hit. Maya never hurt him despite numerous opportunities to do so. When they finished, both were breathing hard, but neither was injured. They bowed again. Maya turned to the delegations. What you just saw is the essence of what we teach. Kyle is stronger than me. He has greater reach and more muscle mass. In a contest of pure strength, he would win easily. But strength alone is not enough. I won our sparring match not because I am stronger, but because I am more skilled and more controlled. And most importantly, I won without hurting my opponent. That is the true test of mastery. She walked toward the Theron delegation. Your people value honor and warrior spirit. These are admirable qualities. But what is more honorable? To fight a war that will kill thousands and destroy worlds? Or to find a solution that preserves life while still maintaining dignity? What shows greater warrior spirit? To charge blindly into battle, or to have the strength to choose peace when peace is possible? True warriors know when to fight, but they also know when not to fight. She turned to the Vask delegation. Your people pride themselves on strategic thinking and tactical superiority. You see this conflict as a chess game to be won. But strategy is not just about defeating your opponent. It is about achieving your goals with minimum cost. What is the strategic value of a war that will drain your resources and create lasting enmity? What tactical advantage comes from destroying what you are fighting to possess? The greatest strategists win without fighting. Maya's voice became more intense. Both of your species have sent students to learn from us. They have learned to punch and kick and throw. But have they learned the deeper lessons? Have they learned that the purpose of training is not to become better at hurting others, but to become better at controlling yourself? Have they learned that real power comes from discipline, not aggression? Have they learned that the strongest person in the room is often the one who chooses not to demonstrate their strength? One of the Theron representatives stood up. His scales bristled with anger. You dare lecture us about honor, human? You are barely more than a child. What do you know of warrior traditions that stretch back thousands of years? Maya did not flinch or back down. She met his eyes steadily. I know that every warrior tradition that survived those thousands of years includes principles of restraint and wisdom alongside techniques of combat. I know that warriors who only know how to fight do not build lasting civilizations. They destroy them. The greatest warrior societies in history were great because they knew when to sheathe their swords, not just how to swing them. The Vask delegation leader spoke up. Her voice was thoughtful rather than angry. What do you propose, human? How do you suggest we resolve this dispute without losing face, without appearing weak to our populations who expect us to fight for what is rightfully ours? Maya had been thinking about this question since she arrived. She answered carefully. I propose a different kind of contest. Not a war, but a demonstration of skill and discipline. Select your best trained individuals, the ones who have studied in our program. Have them compete in a martial arts tournament. The winners get preferential but not exclusive access to the disputed system. Both sides get to demonstrate their strength and honor without killing anyone. Both sides can show their people that they fought and won something. And most importantly, both sides avoid destroying what you are fighting over. The delegations looked at each other with surprise. It was an unusual proposal, but the more they thought about it, the more sense it made. A tournament would satisfy honor. It would demonstrate martial skill. It would give both sides a way to save face, and most importantly, it would prevent a war that neither side could actually afford to fight. The room fell silent as the representatives considered the idea. The Theron representative who had been angry earlier spoke again. His voice was calmer now. This is acceptable to us, but we have conditions. The tournament must be fair. The rules must favor neither species, and the results must be honored by both sides without dispute. The Vask leader nodded agreement. We accept these terms. We also have conditions. The tournament must be judged by neutral observers. The Federation must guarantee the agreement, and both sides must have equal time to prepare their competitors. Maya felt relief wash over her, but she kept her face neutral. I will work with both of you to establish fair rules. The Federation will provide neutral judges. Both sides will have 3 months to select and train your competitors. The tournament will be broadcast across the Federation so everyone can see that this was resolved with honor and discipline. She looked at both delegations. Is this acceptable? Both sides agreed. The tension in the room decreased noticeably. What had seemed like inevitable war an hour ago now had a peaceful solution. Maya had taken the principles she taught in training halls and applied them to interstellar conflict. She had shown that the lessons of martial arts could scale from personal combat to diplomatic crisis. Strength combined with wisdom could solve problems that strength alone would only make worse. Later that night, Maya sat with Kyle and Dr. Wong. They were exhausted but satisfied. Kyle spoke first. That was incredible, Maya. I never thought we could actually stop a war. Maya shrugged. We did not stop it alone. Both sides wanted to avoid war if they could find a way that preserved their honor. We just gave them that way. Dr. Wong smiled. You gave them more than that. You showed them what their students had been learning all along. That real strength includes knowing when not to fight. Maya nodded. 5 years after the incident in the courtyard, Maya stood on the balcony of her quarters on Zentara Prime. She was 22 years old now. The view from her window showed the vast cityscape of the Federation capital stretching toward distant mountains. 3 moons hung in the purple twilight sky. Ships came and went from orbital stations, creating streaks of light across the heavens. It was beautiful and alien, and somehow it had become home. The tournament between the Theron and Vask had taken place 3 months ago. It was a stunning success that exceeded everyone's expectations. Both species fought with honor and skill. The matches were intense but controlled. In the end, the Theron won slightly more matches, giving them preferential access to the disputed system. But the Vask also gained significant mining rights. Most importantly, no one died. No worlds were destroyed. No lasting hatred was created. Both sides felt they had fought well and won honor even in compromise. The success of that resolution had profound effects throughout the Federation. Other disputes began to be settled through similar competitions. Martial arts tournaments became a recognized method for resolving conflicts that might otherwise lead to violence. The program Maya had started now served purposes she never imagined. It was not just about personal development anymore. It was a tool for peace on a galactic scale. The Federation martial arts program had grown beyond anything Maya dreamed possible. It now operated on 47 worlds with over 10,000 active students and 1,500 instructors. Martial arts training had been fully integrated into Federation defense academies and law enforcement training. Diplomatic security teams routinely learned self-defense techniques. Even civilian schools were beginning to offer classes to children. What started as one girl teaching one class had become a fundamental part of how the Federation functioned. But more important than the numbers were the deeper changes Maya saw happening. Federation psychologists continued documenting improvements in students' mental health and emotional regulation. Crime rates were measurably lower in areas where martial arts training was common. Interpersonal conflicts decreased. Violent incidents declined. The data was overwhelming and consistent. Teaching beings to understand and control their physical power made them less likely to misuse it. The philosophy worked across species and cultures. Maya herself had changed too. She was no longer the uncertain 17-year-old who just wanted to go to class. She had grown into her role as teacher and leader. She had learned to navigate complex politics. She had developed confidence in her abilities while maintaining humility about her limitations. She had made mistakes and learned from them. She had succeeded and stayed grounded. The girl who defeated a bully in 8 seconds had become a woman who could help prevent wars. Master Somchai had passed away 6 months earlier. He died peacefully in his sleep at the age of 93. Maya had returned to Earth for the funeral. It was a small ceremony attended by his former students and fellow teachers. Maya gave a eulogy talking about how one old man's willingness to teach a little girl had changed the galaxy. She planted a tree at his training hall in his memory. She made sure his name would be remembered in every Federation training facility. Without him, none of this would have existed. Kyle had also grown tremendously over the past 5 years. He was now director of training operations for the entire program. He managed hundreds of instructors across dozens of worlds. His natural organizational skills combined with genuine humility made him perfect for the role. He had come so far from the angry bully who attacked Maya. Sometimes she looked at him and marveled at how much people could change when given the right opportunities and guidance. He was proof that growth was always possible. Dr. Lisa Wong had become one of Maya's closest friends and most trusted advisors. She was working on a comprehensive book, documenting the scientific basis for martial arts training benefits. The book would help legitimize the program to skeptics who still questioned its value. Lisa joked that Maya made her job easy by proving the theories right every single day. Their friendship had deepened over years of working together through challenges and triumphs. The Federation Council had recently approached Maya with a new proposal. They wanted to create a permanent position for her as ambassador of martial philosophy. It would be an official diplomatic post with authority to work directly with planetary governments on conflict resolution. The council recognized that what Maya taught had applications far beyond the training hall. They wanted her wisdom available at the highest levels of Federation government. Maya had asked for time to consider the offer. Tonight there was a gathering at the main training facility. Students and instructors from across Centaura Prime were coming together to celebrate the 5th anniversary of the program's founding. Maya had been asked to speak, but she felt uncertain about what to say. How could she sum up 5 years of growth and change and unexpected success? How could she capture the journey from that courtyard to this moment? She left her quarters and walked to the training facility. The halls were filled with people from dozens of species. She saw Xanthari and Keltor and Corventhi and Volnari. She saw Theron and Vask talking together peacefully. She saw humans and aliens training side by side. She saw children learning from elders. She saw the rich diversity of the Federation united by shared principles of discipline and respect. Kyle found her before the ceremony started. He looked nervous, which was unusual for him. "Maya, I need to tell you something before you go up there." He paused, gathering his thoughts. 5 years ago, I was angry and stupid. I attacked you because I felt threatened by you. Because I was insecure and needed to prove I was tough. You could have destroyed me that day. You could have hurt me badly. You could have humiliated me in front of everyone. But you did not. You showed mercy and control. And then later you gave me a chance to learn and grow. Everything I have now is because you chose compassion over vengeance. I just wanted to say thank you." Maya felt her eyes getting wet. She blinked back tears. "Kyle, you did the work. You chose to change. You chose to learn. I just gave you the opportunity. You took it and ran with it. You should be proud of how far you have come." Kyle smiled. "We both should be proud. We have built something amazing together, along with everyone else who believed in this vision." The ceremony began and Maya was called to speak. She stood on the platform looking out at hundreds of faces from across the galaxy. She felt the weight of the moment. These people had all been touched by what started 5 years ago. They had all grown and changed. They had all learned that strength and wisdom were better together than either alone. She took a deep breath and began. 5 years ago, I was a scared student who just wanted to get to class. Someone made the choice to challenge me. I made the choice to defend myself. What happened in those 8 seconds changed my life, and changed the galaxy in ways neither of us could have imagined. But here is what I have learned since then. That moment did not create what we have now. That moment revealed what was already possible. It revealed that different species could learn from each other. It revealed that ancient human traditions had value in a high-tech future. It revealed that discipline and control matter more than raw power. All of that was always true. That day just made it visible. She looked around at the crowd. Everyone in this room has contributed to what we built. Every student who trained even when it was hard. Every instructor who adapted techniques for unfamiliar bodies. Every administrator who fought for funding and support. Every skeptic who eventually became a believer. You all made this happen. I was just the spark. You were the fire. Together we showed the galaxy that learning to fight is really about learning not to fight. That understanding violence is the best way to prevent it. That the warrior's path leads to peace, not war. Maya's voice became more serious. But we cannot rest on what we have accomplished. There is still so much work to do. There are still conflicts that need wise resolution. There are still students who need teachers. There are still lessons to learn and mistakes to avoid. The journey is not over. It never ends. Growth is infinite. Mastery is a path, not a destination. So we keep training. We keep learning. We keep improving ourselves and helping others improve. That is what warriors do. Not because we love conflict, but because we love peace enough to work for it every single day. She paused and then smiled. Master Sumchai used to tell me that the best fight is the one that never happens. The best victory is when both sides walk away unharmed. The strongest warrior is the one who never needs to prove their strength. I did not understand what he meant when I was 6 years old. But I understand now, and I hope all of you understand too. We train not to become dangerous, but to become safe. We learn violence to prevent violence. We build strength to protect peace. That is the paradox at the heart of everything we do. The crowd erupted in applause. Maya bowed deeply and stepped back from the platform. She felt lighter somehow. She had said what needed to be said. She had honored Master Sumchai and everyone else who helped build this. She had reminded everyone why they were here and what it all meant. As she left the platform, Kyle was waiting. "You did good, Maya. Master Sumchai would be proud." Maya nodded.